Hey beautiful people, I am back with another video. Of course, everything that I'm going to be talking about is always going to be centered around healing, self-empowerment, self-growth, spiritual content to help enrich the soul from my perspective and point of view. Of course, I'm not a guru in any shape, form, or fashion. So of course, take what resonates and drop whatever doesn't. My intention is simply to raise the question within yourself, and then you expound on it the best way you know how. You go research or you look inward for answers that will trigger growth within you. So if you are interested in healing yourself or just learning about different aspects of yourselves that could use a little TLC, then basically just stay tuned. I do have a message for the collective, which basically just means for anyone who chooses to hear me out. There were 3 themes that kind of came up, which we can all see in our everyday lives when we are scrolling on social media, on the news, or the behaviors of people when we're just like out and about. You can kind of get a general idea of where people's loyalties lie, what's considered important to them. And the 3 topics that came up that I'm going to speak to, the first is going to be selling out. This one is a really big one because most people sell out in their lives at some point in one way or another. And so for the first segment of this message, we're going to talk about exactly what does selling out mean, where does it stem from, and how does it impact us negatively. So when we think of a sellout, I mean, there's a couple of things that come to my mind when I think of sellouts, but realistically, this sellout dynamic stems from the survival archetypes that Carl Jung speaks about, Freud speaks about, Carolyn Myss speaks about. And so I found this really cool article that kind of goes into it a little bit more fluently for the everyday person that's not within the scientific realm. And so I'm just going to read a little insert from this article. So this article was written by Susanna Barlow. This is the one I really like. And she basically just states that the prostitute archetype is one that people usually feel the most uncomfortable with because of its negative sexual association. But the prostitute as an archetype has absolutely nothing to do with sex per se, but has to do with power. Both sex and money are seen as sources of power, so the association becomes obvious. But this archetype centers its power in worthiness and self-respect. All archetypes are expressions of power, but the prostitute trades in her power. And the example of that is, I will give you this for that. It is mostly unspoken, and sometimes it is hard to see that there is a trade-off at all. The goal is really to examine what you might be trading in principles for some kind of security. And some of the most common forms of security are things like acceptance, belonging, keeping the peace, a job, a marriage, maintaining an image, a friendship, and so forth and so on. It's really transactional. So the question is, what are you selling for that security? Most commonly, it's always going to be things like honesty, transparency, kindness, freedom, discernment, clarity, respect, dignity, integrity, and personal accountability. One way to see if you, the prostitute archetype, is operating in the unconscious is to imagine losing the means of security. Literally, what would you do? Would you behave the same regardless? The archetype of the prostitute has a powerful light side, though, which is the incorruptible. To be incorruptible means to understand that the source of your power is not derived from others, but by living up to your own values and standards. That means first discovering what those values are, even writing them down. No one can decide what your values are but you. You are the author of your own integrity. Your principles are not bound by your religion, technology, science, any organization expectations, your family, but they actually just come from within. The incorruptible represents your inner compass, the guiding force inside of each person. It is pure and unbreakable. Acting unconsciously will cause you to sell off your self-respect for the immediate gratification of security. Creating your own value system and living within it is the core work of this archetype. When you operate through the archetype of the incorruptible, you are always in alignment with your values. Your actions always line up with your integrity, no matter what. The incorruptible cannot be tainted or damaged. It is blind to temptation, deaf to bribery, and can stand alone in the face of criticism and judgment. Your payoff is the peace of mind and the heart that comes with living a life of integrity. You literally know who you are and you stand by it. You know, they stroke your ego, but that's not really who you love. So you sacrifice love for the ego stroke. You sacrifice integrity for a few extra dollars. So it's you always sacrificing something that's detrimental to your own well-being and health for security. That is the prostitute archetype. That is the shadow side of survival when it comes to the prostitute archetype. But you want to integrate that shadow element into the lighter side, which is the uncorruptible, where you can't be bribed because you stand firm in who you are. You know who you are. You have integrity. So that's what this message is going to mostly be about for the collective, because that is a huge issue that we're seeing amongst everybody, really. Okay, so now that we truly got a pretty decent idea and understanding about how we sell ourselves out in our everyday lives for our stability or for any reasons to survive, and that can be in any category, really. But I have this activity that I invite you guys to do if you want to get out of that survival mode and start acting in integrity every day. Therefore, you won't be like always feeling like rushed or everything is like dire. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, when your integrity and inner strength are being severely tested, it's almost like you act in desperation. So take a moment and just really look at your life and see where in your life you sell out or you act out of integrity. I mean, is it your job, or are you living in a toxic environment and making yourself sick in the pursuit of financial security? You know, are you hanging with people that truly get on your nerves, but because of clout, you stick around? You know, just look at your life and see what you're trading in for something. And I ask you to find the courage to stand up for your convictions and take steps toward doing what you love. Steps toward understanding that it's okay to pace yourself. You don't have to have the instant gratification. You'll still get it in the end, but take your time. We've discovered through, the articles that were read that selling out is linked to the shadow aspect of the prostitute archetype, right? And when you connect to this archetype, you can examine your fears around your survival, power, or where you feel powerless, responsibility, and your success. Of course, on the light side, we already discussed, but the prostitute can lead you to freedom, self-expression, choice, and love. It's just really all what angle you come from. Again, if you're in survival mode, everything's going to be rushed, everything is dire. But if you just take a step back, pace yourself, and really lean more into integrity and things that make you proud, your life will be so much more balanced. You will feel so much relief and comfort at the end of the day. Everything that you have, you've earned. Everything that you have, it's rewarding because you put in the time and effort to get it. You didn't have to trade off a chunk of your soul for something or be in someone else's control for that thing, So here's what we can do. Get a sheet of paper and write down all the things you've compromised yourself for that you really didn't want to, but you needed a thing, right? Write a list of all those things you've done in your life that you really want to see change. Like, if you could have it anyway, what would you not sell yourself out for that thing? What would it be? So make that list and examine it, and really just make the choice whether you will use your power, talents, and abilities for selfishness and exploitation, or to be in the grips of someone else's power and exploitation, right? So, like it was mentioned before, the prostitute can lead you to freedom and self-expression, choice, and love, but you really have to get over the shadow aspects of the prostitute archetype. So once you can get over that hurdle, then you can see how this will be a rewarding feat for you. So take a few deep breaths and focus on your body. Become conscious of where in your body you feel like you are losing your energy and your power, which is usually going to be like in the solar plexus area. That's like a couple of inches above your belly button, or the sacral area, which is a couple of fingers below the belly button. And place your hands on that part of your body. Visualize your prostitute archetype. It can look similar to this picture that I put up, or it can look like just a darker version of yourself, usually like that vixen look or something like that. Ask the archetype to show you where in your life you are selling out. Become aware of how this affects various areas of your life and your physical and emotional health. Ask your prostitute aspect to help you regain your inner strength and make empowering decisions. Now, of course, this is like visualization. You can do it in the mirror. You can just sit there as you're writing things down and just visualize talking to that darker aspect of yourself. And whatever comes to mind, whatever thoughts come to mind, write it down on the other side of the piece of paper. And visualization is really good for healing. So I know it seems make-believe, but I promise you that's truly how you change, you heal, and you integrate darker aspects. I mean, it is just really that simple. But you have to be willing to open yourself up, be honest with yourself. Because I know right now some of the mentalities out there is just like money, 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 right? You'll do anything to get money. That is what's tearing your soul apart. It's keeping you fragmented. You're not going to be able to manifest. You're not going to be able to really, truly live the life you deserve if you're always chomping at the bit, always got your hand out And I'm not saying this in a judgmental way, but you want something for something. You shouldn't have to compromise yourself to have anything in life. It's your world. It's your world. So to wrap things up, take a few moments out your day to really analyze the list that you created, or to analyze your life and see where you've compromised yourself for a thing that doesn't hold any value to you. Write it down on that piece of paper. The whole idea of this activity is to truly bring awareness to you where you have stepped more into the darker aspects of survival mode. It's time to start living. It's time to get out of survival mode and find ways to turn that darker aspect into the more incorruptible side of the prostitute archetype, which then will tell you've gotten over the hurdle. You've found ways to integrate the darker aspects and you've become incorruptible at this point. You are living in your integrity. Everything that you give and receive, it is on your terms. It's in a way that's not demeaning to your character. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this activity. And again, like I said, it's to bring awareness, because once you're aware, it's on you to actually use that accountability to make the change. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for taking the time out to watch my video. And if you wanted to participate in this activity,